Well, welcome back to the Classic Working Vehicles channel. What I want to work on today is not a huge job, but something I've been meaning to do for a while, is put some additional high-level headlights on my 421. The reason I want to do that is that with three-point linkage on the front, I've sometimes got implements on here that are obscuring the main headlights. Mercedes came up with a solution for that, which was an auxiliary, or an additional, as they described it, set of headlights that could be mounted higher up on the vehicle. And over time, I've managed to acquire the components for the kit. So there's these cast brackets that fit on there, and then additional lighting that goes on there on both sides. What was holding me up really is the plug. This particular plug that goes into the wiring loom and the loom itself. The loom wasn't really a big deal. I could have made up the loom, but finding the plug was a little bit harder. Fortunately, recently a friend offered me the correct wiring loom for a 421 auxiliary lighting. Having removed the lights from his vehicle, he no longer wanted them with no linkage on the front. So that's given me the complete setup. Now these brackets and lights, they are still available new. I don't think the wiring loom is available new. But as I say, that's not complicated, but finding the plug is a bit trickier. It is out there, but they're crazy expensive. So that's what I wanted to have a look at today, was fitting these lights. Means a little bit of drilling. Some of the holes are already there on the vehicle, built in the factory, but we need to drill some holes into the bulkhead, and they obviously need to be in just the right position. So they line up with the holes on the bracketry. So let's make a start. So this is the plug in question. This plug is there for the headlights, side lights, with the headlights both for dipped and main beam. And it's possible, whether I can do this with one hand, let's have a go. It's designed to be unplugged, and then if you have the auxiliary lighting, high level lights, it's designed to be plugged into there using the wiring loom that's designed for them. But I want to do things slightly differently to that. I want main beam and these additional lights to come on with main beam on the main headlights. So when I'm not using equipment on the front, I can still have effectively additional spotlights coming on. The original system was designed to be one or the other, and I still want to be able to keep that option, because if I have got an implement on the front, I don't want the main headlights on because they're going to bounce off the implement and give me glare in the cab and so on. I want to be able to have just the auxiliary lights at the top there. So I've already done a bit of investigation with the wiring diagram and marked up what are the feeds for the left and right hand main beam on the original socket. So on my second socket, I'm going to wire in just those two pins into the fuse box. So when the auxiliary lights are plugged into this socket, the main beam will come on when I choose main beam on the lower lights. If I don't want the lower lights on at all I need to do is unplug the plug for that altogether and just use it in the way that it was designed to be used in the first place. In other words, just swap them around. And then I will have dip, side light and main beam on the auxiliary lights up here. So that's the plan. Hope that makes some sense. So I need to solder on some leads to these two bottom pins, wire this into the wiring harness or into the fuse box, and then add that new harness into the vehicle to be able to feed through to where the lights are going to go. So that's the next job, or that's the first job. So I'll take this little plug apart. If I can, I need a screwdriver. And I suspect, yeah, all the pins will just drop out. So because these pins have never been used as an electrical connection, this plug's, or the socket rather, has just been used as a keeper. These are a bit grubby, I would say. So they need a little bit of, or two of them need a little bit of cleaning up. So I can get a decent electrical connection with them, just so I can use main beam on those auxiliary lights when I select it. So I think what I'm going to do is probably run a suitable sized drill where it's designed for the cable to be soldered in, and that should clean it up a little bit, give me some clean, shiny metal. So let's see if I can find a drill the right size. So now I've got my wires soldered in. So I'm going to reassemble this socket. So 4 of these pins do nothing, they're just a keeper from when the plug's not in use. But 2 of them will make the main beam live. So this is back cover, but it's also an insulator. That goes in like so. I've cleaned up the screws a bit on wire wheel. And I'm going to treat it to some new 3mm nuts that will go back on there. So we should be able to fit this on the vehicle and wire it into the fuse box. So the next job is to feed these wires into the fuse box. So I've put the wiring for the main headlights into the new socket. I've turned the lights on. They're not doing anything at the moment because this isn't wired in, but what I can do is, while main beam is selected, is just see whether the headlights come on. Let's put it on main beam. There we've got 1, and we've got 2, but only on main beam. So what I'm doing there is just testing what will actually be the wiring for the auxiliary lights. It's just a simple way of seeing whether it's going to work or not. And that looks good. The power is currently off. So his next job is to work out where this hole needs to be in the bodywork so it lines up properly. Now I've trial fitted this a couple of times, and what I've discovered is that this cutout here, I can use, it's in line, let's see if you can see, it's in line with the hole. I'm assuming it's been designed that way so we can do exactly as I'm doing now. And what I'm going to do is just measure using a vernier gauge to the center of the hole that's in the bracket, and then I can use that from the bottom of the bracket on here to where the centre should be for the hole. So I'll drill a pilot hole first, and then we'll drill a larger hole. So looking at the wiring loom, it's got to go through those holes. I found that these little grommets are the right size, and when I put a vernier gauge across these, a hole of 11 millimeters, maybe 11 and a half millimeters is what we need. So 11 and a half millimeters. So looking at this, it looks like I've drilled it in just the right spot. Fortunately, there's a bit of reinforcement, and if you can see it through the hole there, that is on the inside of the cab skin here. And I've managed to end up at the right of that. Same on the other side. So I'm hoping that means I hit the sweet spot, just where it needs to be. I'm going to run a little bit of paint around where the bare metal is, just to try and reduce the chance of future corrosion. That doesn't take long to dry, and then we can start feeding through the wiring. So while that's drying, let's just have a look on the inside and see where the wiring needs to be fed. If I look up in the footwell on the passenger side, I can see there's a grommet over here. Casting a shadow with my own hand, I can see there's a grommet over here, which is where the wiring needs to come out. There's a hole already here, ready to go through. And there's even a tab, fold down tab up here, which is meant to hold the wiring in place. So I need to take this grommet out, and then I need to put, rather than having a blanking grommet, have an O-ring grommet in there, just to stop the cable chaffing on these holes. So that's the next thing. It might be a little bit hard to film that. There's nothing remarkable about putting grommets in, so I'll show you once it's done. So the grommets are in here. So let's see if we can feed the wiring loom through. So here's the wiring loom, which is a used wiring loom. Now usually I would do a continuity test, so put a circuit tester on each cable to check that there are no breaks or anything in it. But somebody, what they've done to reduce the risk of this being live, I guess, and to keep it tidy, they put a little bit of heat shrink over each cable, and that I think is going to help me feed this through. So I don't really want to take them off just to do a continuity test. So I think I'm going to wire it up and see whether it works. So these brackets that hold the additional headlights on, when the headlight is clamped to here, water can potentially get into the top of the bracketry. And my concern is that this water will just run through the bracket, through the hole that I drill below the windscreen, and make its way into behind the dash. So I'm going to modify these slightly. What I want to do is just drill a hole that is in line with the vertical mount. It would be that way. Yeah, that makes more sense, that way. So I want a hole that goes vertically up into this hollow that's inside the bracket. So if any water gets in through here, it's got somewhere to escape rather than running back down inside the bodywork. So let's see how well this drills. It's aluminium, so it should be Should be easy. Famous last words, but so if you try to drill something that's on an angle like this, my advice is drill straight first of all until you've made a bit of an indentation into whatever you're drilling, and then put the drill in the direction you actually want it, and that should stop it slipping out. So being aluminium, it's drilled really quite easily. So if it'll focus, there's our hole. You might just be able to see the hole inside. There we go. That's it. So I'm hoping that will catch any water. So these are the headlights, Bosch headlights. So I'm putting LED bulbs. Nice thing is now you can get modern LED bulbs, but with the old types of fittings. So you can use period lamps, but with modern, much brighter lighting that is drawing less current as well. I didn't film stripping back and putting these wires in because it doesn't make for very exciting viewing. But you can see, I'm hoping you can see just about that there's numbers on each of the terminals. And if we look at the wiring diagram, you'll be able to see that these same numbers appear. So that should mean we're able to wire up pretty reliably where each cable goes. And the color coding is here as well. I've got a key. So that's what the color codes are. So if I've got things right, we should be able to get headlights when I go onto main beam. I've got the socket plugged in, I've got the earth line or the earth lead properly connected. These are just hanging loose at the moment. I've only got the headlight bulbs in. Let's just see if it does what I expect. So that's headlights, yep, as I would expect, as before. Now when I go to main beam, these should come on. Yay, right, okay, so that should be working. So now I'm going to swap the plugs over and see whether dipped comes on and side lights come on these lights. Let's see what happens. Should be side lights. Okay, so we've got a wire, two wires are crossed. Need to swap them over. Right, swap the wires over. Let's just try that again. Side lights. dipped, main beam. So all I need to do now is put the lenses on. Right, let's have another go. Sidelights, dipped, main beam. Great. Now I'm going to swap the plugs around again, just see that main beam's coming on as I expect with the lower headlights. Dipped, main beam. Great, that's a lot of light. So I'll have to check alignment, but I need to park near a wall some distance before I can do that. But looks like we're in business. Well, that's the job complete. I think the combination of the LED light bulbs and the additional lighting has made quite a difference. Should make driving on the road at night much more pleasant than the original rather dim light bulbs that it was fitted with. And if you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel out and encourages me to make more content of this type. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hello, this is my neighbour making a nuisance of himself.
Yeah, very nice to see you working. I like to see people having a go.